let's talk about positioning your objects on the stage in a responsive Adobe Captivate project. Here, have a look. I have a responsive project open now, and you can see that across the top there's a primary display, a tablet display, and finally a mobile display. The image that we see there refactors itself in each case, and that's created by a combination of using a theme that automatically assigns positions to things and by you deciding what you want on the screen and where you want to put it. So you can choose where you want items to go, just like you would in any other kind of a project. You simply drag and move items where you want them on the screen, off the screen, and so on. But what we're particularly interested in today is positioning, and smart positioning is a good place to start. You can see when I select an item on the screen, for example, I select this little gauge here in the center, that the Position tab becomes available on the Property Inspector on the right-hand side. See the little checkbox marked Smart Position? Notice that when I turn that on and off, these little markers appear right there on the screen. Now they indicate that the position of this object is relative to the left side of the screen. It's 10% in from the left side of the screen. So that's 10% of the whole width of the slide. And it's 3% down from this element, from this top bar element. So the smart position gives us a way to determine where something is on the screen, either relative to the absolute left and absolute top of a slide, or to some other edge of the slide, or to another object that's on the screen. Smart positioning is always there, but it becomes visible when you check this little box. Now notice when I move to other display views, I still have these smart position references, but they may actually be in different locations on different views. And that allows us to dynamically change what happens there. I also want you to make note. See how when I'm on the mobile view, the orange bar appears across the top? And then the orange outlines around each of these position fields tell us that these are controlled by the mobile view. In Captivate Responsive Design, it's a top-down view starting with the primary view. So when you set up the primary view, you'll see all of these items highlight in green. And if you don't modify them in the tablet view, for example, these fields have not been modified, they'll continue to be influenced by whatever you said to do in the tablet view. Likewise, when you go down to the mobile view, you'll see the orange ones indicate that they have been modified for mobile view, but these green ones still have not been, so they're using the same factors. Now, another cool thing that you want to be aware of has to do with how we managed to make this item the right size for this slide. Take a look again as I scale. Notice this is large. This one is about the same size, but in this case we wanted it to get significantly smaller. There's always a danger when you start shrinking automatically and dynamically, a danger of getting something too small. Things like logos, it's very important that they remain legible. So notice here at the bottom we have an advanced option called min-max. Now the min-max represents the minimum height and minimum width, the maximum height and the maximum width. So it allows you to control how big something can get and how small it can get. And you just enter the absolute smallest value that you're willing to take here in pixels. Now, while we're on the topic of pixels, I want to mention that in positioning, it's also possible to use a number of measurements that you may not be familiar with from your previous experiences in e-learning. Up here on the right, you'll see there's a little I that indicates information. And we knew that that information would probably be useful, especially as you're just getting started. That information gives you the definitions for what each of these fields represent. Now, percent, that's something we're kind of familiar with from the web. You understand that the idea that if something is 50% of the way across a slide, that means that it's always going to appear halfway. And you may wonder, why does it have to be percent? Well, the answer is because in some cases with mobile, you don't know whether the screen's going to be, this wide or this wide or this wide. And so knowing that it needs to be halfway gives you information about where to display it, even when you don't know exactly how wide the screen will be when the viewer looks at it. So that's why percentage. Now you'll notice also that you can express these things in pixels. That's in the case that you know that you're only delivering to this one kind of device. Maybe you're only delivering to a specific mobile phone or to a specific tablet. In those cases, you can set up the exact pixel dimension because you'll know ahead of time exactly what kind of devices your content will play on. Now this one, percent relative, has to do with the idea of smart positioning and associating objects with other objects. What you're doing with smart positioning is you're determining that you're going to put it at a relative percentage distance away from some other object or item on the screen for that particular layer. You also will find that there's a field called automatic in some cases, and this allows you to adjust the width automatically in association with the height of an item. So automatic is often the best thing to use for the width of an object's size. That way you're sure that the height and width will always be relative to one another. So there you have the basics of smart positioning, min-max, percentage, pixels, etc. Why not get started and create your first responsive project today?